Hey guys, welcome to the Managers Mindset podcast. Today we're going to be discussing about the most important topic for the hour, which is creativity, right, and how to master it. Today we have a guest who is a design thinking and creativity facilitator and leadership development consultant, founder of Urban Zen and partner at COSM, and she also worked with Hindustan Unilever and L&T Infotech. She has about a decade of an experience in creativity and design thinking. So let's welcome the guest of the day, Sakina.
Hi, Jeevi.
Hi, Sakina. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast.
It's my pleasure. One of the most important skill set now currently people are actually looking at with pandemic, all of this. So how to think out of box, coming up with some beneficial ideas. When we talk about ideas, the first thing comes to our mind is creativity. Okay? Now, you being a design thinking and creativity facilitator for a decade, I think you should be able to give us a clarity on what is creativity first of all, and why people really think they are not creative.
Yeah, that's a very interesting question, GB. I'll tell you what, this is a question that comes to me a lot of times in my workshops as well. So when I'm conducting workshops, and I ask people this question that, hey guys, what do you think is creativity? And they tell me that how ironic is it? You know, you're coming to a workshop to learn creativity and you ask to bring a common definition. So I say that, hey, it's not ironic because there is one single terminology that we need to use to define a certain word, and it's not that creativity is something you can't define because it's abstract. I think the most common definition that I have come across and something that I feel is most meaningful is that creativity is the art of turning new and imaginative ideas into reality. Now there are two keywords here. One is imaginative ideas and the second is reality. So most people think of creativity, it's ideas, but hey, if if there was no reality, if these ideas were not put to action and execution, it's just imagination. So now imagine if Edison just thought that, oh, there should be something like a light bulb. You switch it on, there should be a light bulb. But yeah, if he had not done those 100 experiments to really come up with something, I'm sure that would not have been a creative idea. So yeah, in a nutshell, creativity is to bring imaginary ideas to reality.
Into reality.
Now, yeah, and the second question that you asked me is why do people think that they cannot be creative? Now, I'll tell you. So, GV, have you come across children?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you would have spent good enough amount of time observing children, and if you've seen a child very carefully, they hold a pen and paper and they scribble all over the paper. Once they scribble all over the paper, they come to their parents, to mom and dad, to show it off, saying that, oh wow, I've made such a wonderful painting. Yeah. Now, to you and I'd be like, what is this? This is just scribbles. But the kid is really happy to share what he or she has made.
Right.
Now, as these kids grow older, they become self-critical because people are saying, no, it's not that great. It's not very nice. So they become critical. They're like, no, it's not perfect. Oh, somebody ridiculed my painting. And as they keep on picking up the vocation of their choice, let's say getting into education, they perhaps leave that painting saying that, you know what, I'm never going to be able to be a good painter anyway, so let me not even try. And the next time they're going outside and somebody asks them that, hey, GV, do you paint? And you're like, no, I'm not a great painter, I can't paint. So the point I'm trying to make here is what prevents people to be creative is the fear of failing, the desire for perfection. But who knows perfection? We've never seen perfection, and you can never attain perfection. I think that is something that makes most adults move to the zone of inaction.
Okay.
And as I said earlier, creativity without action is just imagination.
Okay. So now if that's going to be the case, coming up with ideas is not creativity, is what we are talking about, right? So when you come up with an idea and then try it out, experiment it multiple times, and then you come up with a product or a service or whatever, what is the outcome of those ideas, that is what we are calling it as in creativity. But now, if that's going to be the case, then what is innovation? Because there are two different things coming out, right? So outcome of creativity is innovation, isn't it, or something else?
No, you're absolutely right. The outcome of creativity is innovation. So creativity, like if we have to look at it from a diagrammatic representation,
Hmm.
creativity is the process, what goes on
Okay.
in your mind
Hmm.
to come up with that idea.
Hmm.
The idea in when it goes inside a funnel and
Hmm.
is you create a product or you create an outcome out of it,
Hmm. Hmm.
that is innovation. So creativity is what goes on in your mind.
Okay.
Innovation is what the tangible product, service, etc. that you can say.
Hmm. Okay. If that's the case, then I think that's when the people really got stuck, right? So they think that they're not able to think in different viewpoints and come up with certain ideas. Then thinking is a process, or if it is a process, then it can be learned, right? So I'm
Yes.
assuming that then creativity is a skill set, right? If it is a skill set, then how to learn it?
Great question. And when we say creativity is a skill set, the first thing to know is that it creativity is not something that you can master overnight,
Hmm.
right? Intrinsically, all of us are creative,
Hmm.
and let's break creativity down into several skills. So one of the skills of creativity is the mere fact that you observe.
Okay.
Observation is a skill set for
Hmm.
to in order to be creative. So for example, if we talk about the Wright brothers who invented the airplane,
Hmm.
they spent enough time observing flights of seagulls, observing birds,
Hmm.
to say that, hey, this is what makes the birds fly. Can we replicate that? Can we replicate a certain phenomenon or a principle in our plane? There's another concept called biomimicry, which perhaps let me just digress and share a little bit because it might be interesting for our viewers.
Hmm.
So biomimicry is the act of observing nature
Hmm.
and replicating the same model into objects,
Hmm.
products, or services. So for example, if you talk about the bullet train, so there was a Japanese engineer who actually created the bullet train, and when they were going for the test run,
Hmm.
the bullet train was passing through the tunnel at a very high speed, and it created a very loud sound, which
Okay.
we all would have heard is the sonic boom.
Hmm.
When it creates that loud sound, obviously the neighbors got disturbed, and that train was at the risk of being decommissioned.
Okay.
Now, this Japanese engineer, he said, "Oh, this is a big problem. What do I do?" One of the things that he really enjoyed doing was to be amidst nature. So he was sitting near the lakeside, and he saw that there was a kingfisher was flying from this tree, and made a dip into water to pick up fish. And when he saw that that kingfisher is dipping to get the fish, it wasn't creating any ripples. He said, wow, okay, can I replicate and use the same model into my plane, to into my train? And he what he did, along with his entire team, was just tapered the front of the bullet train and made it in a pointing shape. And when they tried that again, it did not create that sonic boom sound. And also the electricity that was used to commission that entire train, there was a reduction 30% of
Wow.
electricity usage. So simply put, the answers to creativity are can be amidst nature. So observation is a very important skill set that would
Hmm.
help us, in order to be creative. Of course, there are many sub skills like experimenting. The fact that we spoke about Thomas Edison, the number of experiments. The problem is that we miss out on this important thing called experimenting. The third try, the fourth try, and we bog down saying, you know what, this will never work.
Hmm.
Now, that fear of, hey, this will never work, will not make us make the seventh or eighth attempt.
The example was pretty interesting, is it? It's like you just observe and try to replicate something, which gives you which gives a phenomenal benefit. The key takeaway for me is find, do a lot of an observation and try to, map and try to replicate, so that you would be able to see some tangible benefit coming out of it. Again, the key is the observation. Right.
Absolutely.
So now moving on to the next item. Now, if we are going to say it is what would be the maximum duration as a, or is there a method to develop this particular skill?
Well, I'm glad there is, GV, and that is exactly why
What you do, right?
why we do what we do. But on a serious note, what I usually tell my participants and the people who come for my workshops is that we ask them to take a test.
Okay.
Now, this test is called the Creativity Accelerator Assessment.
Mm-hmm.
When they take the test, they are able to observe and see a report which says that, okay, this is my creativity quotient. This is exactly where I am lacking in terms of my creativity skill sets. And you say, okay, we are attending 3 days training, but let me not lie to you. 3 days training will not help you build your creativity, of course. But what they get is an action plan. They get a plan which says that, okay, I need to do XYZ. Now, I'll give you what is XYZ. XYZ is simple actions that I can do on a daily basis in order to amp up my creativity scores. So, for example, one of the things that we ask people to do is a simple thing like do a Sudoku. Or second would be write 10 minutes daily. Write the questions that you came across today. So, for example, if I look at my cupboard and I say, why is the handle shaped straight? Why cannot not be curved? So, write down those questions on your daily journal so that you can build that skill of questioning your status quo. So, one of the things that managers usually, really step back and fail at is that, everything is going on the way it is. I'm not taking a step back and questioning why is this process designed the way it is. It's been going on for 10 years. Nobody bothered to change it. Nobody bothered to review it. And also when somebody brings up the conversation of reviewing it, the fear is, oh, all this work is going to come back on me.
Very true.
So those are some of the actions that we make them do, and we say that, okay, come back after 6 months, take this test again, and see if your scores demonstrate any change. So I would say, in order to show a significant change in your creativity scores, I think the 6 month is a good duration.
Good duration, is it? Talk about this creativity accelerator test, right? So what are the factors involved in that test? Probably what kind of an aspects you would be looking out there? Just very curious on.
Sure. So, GB, one of the things, of course, like the skill that I mentioned is observation.
Okay.
So your ability to observe phenomenon around you. Second one is to figure out.
Okay.
Or in India, we call it jugaad. The aspects of problem discovery and problem solving. The third one is active experimentation. What is your inclination to actively experiment?
Right.
The fourth one is bias for action, moving the needle, the act of moving the needle. And the last one is the act of drawing connections. Drawing connections. And I would say that that's one of the most important aspects of creativity, because if you observe the most creative thinkers, let's say somebody who's a copywriter, they're able to pick up unrelated ideas, unrelated objects, and bring those together. And from my research, some of the most creative thinkers, whether it's in business or art, that's one of the things that they said, that we just spend time whether it's in the shower or otherwise, just thinking about, okay, what if I combined this and this? What if I brought these two ideas together?
Okay.
Right. So yeah, the last one I meant is drawing connection. So these are some of the dimensions that you would be measuring yourself on.
Beautifully designed test, right? So it actually covered all the aspects of developing a skill set. Having talked about this, Sakina, now what are the simple tools and techniques any managers can use in their day-to-day life, because that's the most important segment of this entire podcast, because people would be really thinking, okay, I've listened to the entire podcast, but what kind of an actions I can take immediately? uh, so what are the simple tools they can use to become creative?
Yes. So, GV, in terms of tools, there are many, many, many tools that you could use with your teams at work and otherwise. I
Mm.
wish I could show you these tools, but since it's a podcast, I'll just call them out.
Okay.
So, one of the things that, one of the dimensions that have come out
Mm.
so beautifully in the last 10 years is this space called design thinking.
Mm.
Now, design thinking has some brilliant tools like empathy mapping. So whenever you're approaching a problem, empathy maps are something that will help you envision
Mm.
what are the feelings of your customers or your stakeholders. What
Mm.
are they thinking about? What are they saying? What is the context around them?
Mm.
And then finally, through a pain gain map, you're able to identify what are the pains of my customers, what are the
Mm.
opportunities that I have with these customers. Now, it might sound like a very simple tool,
Mm.
but we have seen this time and again with a lot of example stories, like, for example, Kodak, where one of the biggest failures was the fact that they could not identify what the real challenge was.
Okay.
And we were so distant from our customers
Mm.
that we were not really hearing them.
Mm.
We were watching them, but we were not hearing what were the underlying motives and behaviors. So I think in terms of creativity, really spending time with your users, spending time with your customers is so important. And this tool is something that would really benefit managers mostly. So that's one of the tools, which is, of course, in design thinking. Another popular tool that can that won't require a lot of time, but
Mm.
could be, let's say, I would call it a quick fix, is something known as mind mapping. Now, I personally love mind mapping. Every time I'm stuck with a creative roadblock, what
Mm.
I do is I pick up a sheet of paper, a white blank sheet of paper. At the center of the map is your problem. So, for
Mm.
example, for the ones who are uninitiated, in the center of the mind map, you write your problem. For example, new
Mm.
material for usage, and you branch out just like the neurons of your brain. You branch out and write the different options that come to your mind. So, for example, if I wrote new material, then I in the center, and on the right hand side I branch out to paper, plastic, leather,
Mm.
faux leather, etc. So I think mind map, and I'll give you the logic also behind mind map, why it works is, um, there are little scribbles in the mind map which are branches of the trees,
Mm.
and our neurons are not straight, they are not circular, they are not perfect figure, they are also curly, just like these branches. And therefore what you are essentially doing is you are thinking while writing,
Mm.
and the paper is planning your thinking parallelly, just like, and mirroring your brain. So
Mm.
I think mind map, that is why it was founded by a gentleman called Tony Buzan.
Mm.
Unfortunately, he's no more, but it's a very popular tool used by adults, businessmen, and women and children.
Right. So I personally like the mind map because I do use mind map a lot. And this there are a couple of free softwares which has come up now in the mind mapping. Mindminster is one thing where people can actually use, and it is free of cost for anybody can try it out. I personally believe it's pretty uh, powerful, where you can, when you look at a problem, it gives you a whole different story of a problem, and it branches, like, it goes on and on and on and on, right?
I love it. Yeah, I'm so glad you like it too. Jeevi, I want to add another tool,
Yeah.
which I discovered post pandemic, and
Mm-hmm.
I think it's something that a lot of managers, I've seen them really appreciating this tool.
Mm.
It's called Mural. So the
Okay.
website is mural
Mm-hmm.
dot co. Um, what it simply does is that when you would typically sit together in at
Mm-hmm.
work, you would sit with a whiteboard and brainstorm. But here you don't need to be in front of each other, and this replaces the experience of a whiteboard online. So
Okay.
even if you're not with each other, you can still brainstorm using the tool Mural. So I would definitely recommend it.
Okay. Okay. So it's primarily for a virtual brainstorming session,
Correct.
right? Okay, because definitely going further, virtual is going to be the way of living. Hence, these are certain things people have to adapt. That's my take. So these are three tools which Sakina is actually recommending us to use it. But though since it is a podcast, she's not able to show us the pictures and all of that. But still, you should be able to Google it and understand it. And if you guys really feel, if you wanted to slightly get deeper into these tools, please let us know. We should be able to, facilitate some of these sessions on exploring these tools. Now, Sakina, having talked about this, how the manager should encourage the team members, because this is typically for middle line managers, and only the managers cannot come up with too much of ideas as such. And I strongly believe that people who are on the front line, they know a lot of details beyond what we think, right? So how to actually motivate or encourage them to come up with different ideas?
This is I love this question, and this is most managers struggle with that, because
Mm,
they, a lot of managers say that, oh, the ideas should come from me. But then if all the ideas coming from you, then how are you a manager? So yes, I think it's very important for managers to really encourage creativity within their teams. And I would say that unfortunately, GB, when it comes to traditional idea generation,
mm,
it's really designed for extroverts.
okay.
What I mean by that is, when you see a traditional brainstorming
Mm,
session in a meeting, you will see people talking over each other, people giving into group think. And group think, when I say, is, let's say, due to hierarchy, the senior most person or the loudest person in the room gets to say the last word, and
mm,
everybody will just go with the idea, because it's said by somebody who's the senior most person,
mm,
versus really going for the true merit of the idea.
mm,
Okay. And that's where I really like to talk about the principle of yes and. Now, what the yes and principle does is
mm,
that, let's say, GB, you shared an idea. My job would not be to negate the idea, saying that, hey, that's not a great idea, listen to mine. My job would be to take your idea, add
mm,
new information, and improvise that idea.
mm. Okay.
Okay, so that would be my key role. So as a manager, my key role would be to yes and on your ideas, add new information in order to make your idea stronger.
Stronger.
And if
Mm,
that is the principle, if we can all adhere by and live by, I'm sure brainstorming would be much relevant, easier, encouraging, engaging. So
mm,
that's one, yes. And second thing is, what we typically like to do in our boot camps is a process where people can, can practice brain writing. So brain
mm,
writing is where, let's say, I have to write an idea. I'll take a piece of paper, write down my idea, pass it to the next person. The
mm,
next person adds some idea onto my idea. And then once I have these ideas written, I have 1 minute opportunity to share my idea with the entire team.
mm,
And everybody has to listen, add, and contribute in a non-judgmental manner.
mm,
And to see the idea for its merit. And that is why, GV, I would say a facilitator in
okay.
any of these idea sessions are so important,
Mm,
because without a facilitator, you'll indulge in group think, into talking
mm,
over each other, etc. So a facilitator, neutral facilitator,
mm.
is very important, whether it's internal or external.
So I remember one of the saying from my boss. He always says this: even one small sign of frowning can completely bury the ideas during the sessions. As you said, having a facilitator is very important, and I really like the idea of yes and, right, you acknowledge it and improvise the idea better, right, rather than just saying no to it or having a last word. Instead of that, you just say yes, add a lot of information and improvise it and try to implement it. So that's
I
that's
really
one.
like what your boss said, that a simple frown is something that can discourage the other person.
Hmm.
And therefore, you call that poker face, how
Ha,
poker players,
yeah.
operate in a room. So that's what the role of a manager is, to be an actor, and be driven by the process versus
Mm.
being the driver of the process.
Right, right, very true. So now, this is a last question for you, Shakil. Now, what is one book if you wanted to recommend to the community around this particular topic? What is it?
Yeah, well, GV, there are so many books. I've read,
That is
a
the
lot of
problem, right?
books. Yeah, I mean, I've read so many books, and I would say I would love all of them. But if there's one book,
Mm,
for people who would really like to get a snapshot, a deep dive into the
mm,
neurological aspect of creativity, I
mm.
would recommend this book. And in fact, I have this with me. It's called The Secret of the Highly Creative Thinker.
Okay.
This
Mm,
is written by authored by Dorothy Nielsen and Sarah
mm,
Thurber. Now,
mm,
I love this book because now we are talking about a book of creativity, and I've seen,
mm,
large thesis, and I'm like, okay, this completely is an antidote to creativity. But
mm,
this one I like it because it has examples, it has stories, it has images, and
mm.
it explains the concept of creativity in such a
Okay.
lucid way. So I would highly recommend this book for the ones who like to read.
Thank you very much. I do read a lot of book, but in terms of creativity, I'm a fan of Edward de Bono all the time because this lateral thinking and having a beautiful mind and all of those books. But I have not tried out some other books because I've just moved into a different genre. So, but definitely this recommended book, I will go through it, and probably the community members, I would request all of you to think about it and take a look at it, and because these are the books which can give you a lot of ideas and insights on developing this particular skill. Now, having talked about so much today, I am so humbled and honored to have you, Shakina, on the show, and lot of insights. And you have made the entire show very interactive. I really liked it because the viewers will feel that when they hear the podcast, or probably if they are viewing in YouTube as well, because we have spoke about the basics of creativity and certain tools which you have told us what kind of tools we can use, and what are the other tools where managers can actually use to encourage their team members. Those are really good ones, and I really loved it. Thank you very much for being on the show.
Thank you so much, GV. I thoroughly enjoyed, and the pleasure is all mine. Honored to be invited on your wonderful podcast. I've gone through a lot of the other sessions that you've done, and I must say that you have a great knack of engaging your viewers, and the content that you're dishing out is just fantastic. So, more power to you and your wonderful viewers.
Thank you very much. All right, guys, stay tuned. We'll be publishing this entire podcast in coming next Thursday, and stay tuned for upcoming podcast. Thank you very much, and advance Happy New Year. Happy New Year, Shakina, to you as well.
Happy New Year, GV. Thank you so much.